Good morning, this is Karen Johnson, and welcome to part of our Proctor's History Series sponsored by the Proctor's Historical Committee. Today is Friday, July 11th, 2014, and we have as our guest Margaret Peggy King, who is a longtime usher at Proctor's. And we thought it would be fun to find out a little insider information on what it's like to be an usher.
Okay.
So tell me how long you've been doing this.
You know, I was trying to remember when I started. I moved up to Schenectady in 1982, and I think I started ushering within two to 3 years of that move. It was a unique situation. Mary Ann Lamel headed up the volunteer ushers, and they had tried an experiment using high school students to usher in the balcony, and apparently it didn't work well. So she was looking for a bunch of new people to usher in the balcony. So rather than having to be on a waiting list for however long it was at that point in time, a number of us just got in right away. And we always ushered in the balcony, which I still pretty much do to this day.
So you must have that memorized by
I
now.
do, absolutely. And we used to have a good time because there used to be a core group of us, and we were always working together, so we became really good friends. And really had a lot of fun.
So you don't have any idea, but you usher a lot, even today.
Yes. Today, of course, now when we have the Broadway shows that are here for a week or longer, we are required to usher at least once a week. So, you know, when Phantom is here for a month, I get to see it 4 times. Plus, I have learned when you usher in the balcony, you usually miss the first 20 minutes of the show because you're outside, you know, for late seating. So now I have learned that I need to subscribe to the shows where I want to see the entire show. So a show like Phantom, I saw 5 times when it was here before, and of course it's been
like
back.
one time fully and the rest parts
Right,
of.
yes, yep.
So when you explain about the procedure, the ushers come very early.
Yes, we are required to get here about an hour and a half before the show starts. We have to make sure we get programs out to all the different locations. Many times we have to stuff the programs. There may be a flyer for an organization or company sponsoring a show. Many times there are cast changes. So all of those have to go right in the front of the program. So we need to have all that ready so when the doors open, we're ready for the guests.
So the doors usually open generally about half an hour before the show starts.
Right.
Do you know how they make that decision of when to open the doors?
I think the touring companies determine that. Shows that are either local, you know, more local, the Proctor's, I think, has more say in what will happen. Like for a graduation, we typically open more like 45 minutes or so before, which makes it a lot easier on us. You know, 30 minutes, particularly if you have a full house, gets a little crazy.
Do you remember the shortest load-in time you ever did? Because sometimes there have been big holdups.
Boy, that's a good question. I'm not sure I do, no, but I know there's many times that we really scramble to get everybody in.
And, you know, like there have been times when a performer was late because of bad weather of driving and they're not there and they still have to do a sound check.
Yeah.
And I think people that are here sometimes don't realize that the reason they're being held up has nothing to do with Proctor.
Exactly, yes.
And that we're trying to get everybody in as soon as we can.
Yep. I remember, I'm trying to remember what was the show where they had technical problems. It was one of the Broadway shows, and they ended up having to cancel the performance.
In the middle.
And that was, you know, we knew it was, you know, things were starting very late, you know, and we're all kind of curious about what's going on here. And eventually Philip Morris had to go up on stage and say that the show could not go on. And of course then, you know, people wanted to try to get tickets for another performance. So, you know, many of us then tried to just go out and just kind of stay with the crowd and answer questions and, you know, offer to help whenever we could. But that only happened once in my almost 30-year history of doing this.
Once you get the people into their seats, which takes a certain amount of time, what other duties do you have?
You're just kind of monitoring the theater. You know, many times for the Broadway shows particularly, no photography is allowed. So you're watching to see if you see anybody taking pictures, and if you do, you've got to go up and tell them to delete them, or in some cases actually take the camera or the phone away from them. You also want to be there in case there's any kind of an emergency. Obviously, if there were to be a fire or anything like that, you know, we are trained in what we need to do to try and get people out of the theater as quickly and efficiently as possible. So, you know, you're always kind of, you never totally relax.
You're like the stewardess of the
right,
airplane. You're
right.
there in case of trouble.
Yes.
And during intermission, do you have any duties?
Oh, yes. Particularly when you're ushering in the balcony, although it happens downstairs too. I think the ladies' room is the challenge. You know, the long lines at the ladies' room, and now that we have an additional restrooms out in the arcade area, both upstairs and down, trying to convince people that, you know, there are other restrooms, they may be able to, you know, get through them more quickly. Things like that. Monitoring the candy counter. A lot of times if it's a show that attracts young people, you get large crowds at the candy counter and they can block the whole area so people can't get through. So it's, you know, just kind of asking people to stay over closer to the railing. And
all the time being very cordial and welcoming.
Right, right.
So it sounds like a job that's a lot of fun.
It really is. I mean, there are moments when it can get very, very stressful. I think one of the other things that we also do after the show starts is have to deal with late seating, when people come late.
Okay.
And
Tell
trying
me
to
how
get
that works.
Different shows have different requirements. You know, some will not let us seat people for 10, maybe 12 minutes into a show. So, you know, people come late, they generally want to be seated right away, and they're sometimes not happy that they can't be, but we try to get them upstairs anyway on the ramp so at least they can see and hear what's going on. Then when you take them to the seat, the challenge is always, is everybody in the correct seat? And that is probably the thing that makes me the most nervous, is when I'm taking somebody up to a seat after the show has started and to find that somebody's in the wrong seat. And you're trying to untangle the mess without disrupting everybody from watching the show.
Well, the show is still going
Exactly.
on. So
Yeah.
you've worked under a lot of different systems of management of the ushers.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had any interesting experiences with that?
No, I think generally it's been really, really positive. I mean, it's basically been with Mary Ann Lamel, and she was great to work with, and Cindy Leroux now, and you know, Cindy's, you know, now we're a lot more technologically efficient in terms of, you know, shows we sign up for and what we have to do if we can't work a show or something, things like that. But
so it might be of interest to people to know that Mary Ann Lamel performed this job as a volunteer.
Yes, yes.
And that she would sit with the shows, and I don't know quite whether there were little cards or how it was done, but she matched people up and contacted them.
Yep.
And now we're basically on email system.
Right. Yes.
So we have good communication, and there'll be times when emails will go out to try and get extra help.
Yep. Yep.
And then people can volunteer. Well, you are an usher captain, aren't you?
Yes,
now?
I'm not with the, well, one time I was an usher captain. Now I'm a floor captain. So that's been
an
one slight
elevation.
shift. No, probably
What does
not an
that mean?
elevation, probably a demotion.
Management, anyway.
Yes, yeah. You know, there are a number of head ushers that, you know, really do an amazing amount of work in terms of, you know, making assignments for where we're all going to work, and dealing with people who are sick or, you know, who have to change and things like that. And I give them a lot of credit, and they've also got a lot more computer expertise than I have. Mm-hmm. But when I'm here, you know, I'm kind of often in charge of the ushers in the balcony, but working under the head usher.
Okay. It's quite an operation. Do you have any idea in a Broadway show about how many people usher?
Oh gosh.
There's no reason you'd really know that.
No, I don't, but it's a
an
lot.
interesting question.
Yeah, because there's probably, 4 or 5 people on each aisle downstairs. And if I'm lucky, I've got 2 to 3 on each aisle upstairs.
So is that 5 aisles?
Yeah, yes.
So you have
6.
6 aisles, and you have So you have almost 20 people upstairs.
Right. Yeah.
And probably we have 40 to 50 downstairs.
Yes.
And now, you know, a lot of people like to be an usher, but for the really sold out shows, it used to be that we had plenty of seats to sit and watch the shows, and now that isn't always possible.
No, no. So sometimes, you know, the ushers can sit on the steps by the, you know, the sides of the theater. I find I usually just stand on one of the ramps. But for some of the shows, you know, we literally have to be outside the theater, and Proctor's has been great about setting up monitors so we can watch it on TV. Yeah.
Okay. Live theater on TV.
Right, right.
Well, I know it's very appreciative. You mentioned that you've met a few stars over the years. Tell me about that.
One of my probably all-time favorite moments is when Scott Hamilton was here with his ice show. And two things happened. One time, I think I had lunch with the old restaurant Peggy's was downtown. And a friend and I had lunch there, and this was when the ice show was at Proctor's. And I was walking back, actually, I think I was coming back to the theater. And I thought, gee, look, this guy looks familiar to me. And I turned around, and it was Scott Hamilton. And so I actually got to say hi to him, and I'm a huge ice skating fan. But the best part of that show, I think I had ushered for both a matinee and an evening performance. And I remember I was in the theater, and music was playing, and it was well before the show was going to start. And I just can remember looking at the chandelier and the theater and just thinking how lucky I was that, you know, we had this in Schenectady, and I was able to do this. It was just really neat.
Well, you've certainly stuck to it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we ought to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, I think Proctor's has a great group of volunteers. The staff who, you know, coordinate us, I think, do a really good job. And we're so lucky to have this theater right in downtown Schenectady.
And Philip Morris says without the volunteers, we would really be unable to perform. So it's a wonderful two-way street.
Right. And, you know, one of the pluses, I mean, when I first moved here, I couldn't afford to buy a lot of tickets to shows. And by ushering, you know, I got to see a lot of things I normally wouldn't have seen. And even today, you know, I do subscribe to the Broadway series, but a lot of times some of the unusual shows that I might not have gotten a ticket for, and I volunteer for it, and it's a whole new experience. It's kind of neat.
Yes, that is good, because I have had that benefit of tickets to shows that occasionally that you have no idea what they are.
Exactly.
And you go, the Whirling Dervishes or something like that. And there was under Gloria's, there was a bunch of Buddhist monks who came in and they were doing chants.
Okay, I didn't see that one.
I recall we brought some Dutch people and they said, we admire the skill, but we don't really care for the music. But the thing is that it's an opportunity to really expand your horizons.
It really is.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of our volunteers share.
Yes.
Have you ever done any of the children's performances?
I've done a few, not a lot, but they're kind of interesting too.
That's a whole other area because we have a regular daytime crew that kind of does that.
Yes.
And we could have 2,400 kids in this theater.
Yep.
Easily, and it's a lively place.
Yes, it is.
Well, ushers, bartenders, everybody keeps Proctor's running, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh,
I'll just mention again, it's Friday, July 11th, 2014, and we've been talking to Margaret King, who's best known as Peggy, and talking to her about what it's like to be an usher at Proctor's over a long period of time, from '82 up until today, 2014. Thanks, Peggy.
It's been fun.